hearing aids go out, I'll take over.
Recording in progress.
The spam from the recording. So Molly, I'll make you host now and then.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep, we're recording and we're on YouTube now, so we'll get started here shortly. Give folks another 5 minutes or so to get logged in. Currently have about 6 attendees in the queue.
Casey, is our link posted on the website now for the live stream?
He's checking.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yep, there's a link to it on the front page and then the video's there.
Thank you. Got a few more folks joining us here.
Did you guys see Eric's message in the chat? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Let me verify something with him and then I'll get him taken care of.
Hey guys,
Hey, Eric.
am I there? Am I there now?
Yep, you're on.
All right.
And we're live.
Okay, and I think I can just star 6 and yeah.
Yep.
We'll give folks just about another minute to join us and then we'll go ahead and get rolling. Alrighty, well, why don't we go ahead and get started tonight? For everyone joining us, thank you for being here this evening. We're pleased to have you all here to help provide some feedback for this new wolf plan that we're developing. I thought we'd just start with some quick introductions from some of our FWP team that are here to give us some support tonight. My name is Molly Parks. I'm the carnivore coordinator for the state of Montana. Brian, you want to introduce yourself?
You bet. Brian Wakeling, I'm the Game Management Bureau Chief for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks.
Sam?
Hi, I'm Sam Fino. I'm the Wolf Plan Coordinator.
And Eric?
Yeah, hi, my name is Eric Merchant, and I am the MIPA coordinator for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, Montana Environmental Policy Act.
Great. So this evening, I just wanted to give you some quick background and information kind of on this process before we get really rolling and open it up for comment. So as many of you may know, Governor Gianforte directed the department to develop a plan to replace the 2003 Montana Gray Wolf Conservation and Management Plan that was drafted and approved when the wolf was still listed under the endangered species list. The department is initiating a scoping for possible alternatives for consideration as we develop a new wolf management plan for Montana. So to date, the department has identified two alternatives. The no action alternative would keep the 2003 wolf plan in place, while the 2003 wolf plan was developed to provide flexibility in managing the wolf population present in Montana during the early 2000s. The wolf population has grown substantially since that time. The original population monitoring metrics, techniques, and described response to livestock depredations are outdated and inefficient. Consequently, the department is considering another alternative. So the second alternative would employ population management objectives that were initially adopted as part of the Montana Fish and Wildlife Commission's 2010 season setting process. These include maintaining a viable and connected wolf population in Montana, maintaining authority for the state of Montana to manage wolves, maintaining positive and effective working relationships with all stakeholders, maintaining sustainable opportunity, hunter opportunity for wolves and for ungulates. We're also looking at increasing broad public acceptance of sustainable harvest and hunter opportunity as part of wolf conservation. We're looking to enhance and open and effective communication to better inform decisions. And we really want to learn and improve as we go by incorporating new research and monitoring monitoring methods as they become available. So the second alternative may incorporate strategies to help ensure that balance required for wolf management in Montana is recognized into the future. And this could include things like spatial differences in the level of wolf mortality to reach the specified population or other management objectives at the statewide scale. So think about addressing concerns for big game populations or livestock depredation concerns. So focal areas of intensified harvest as one option. Updated description of wolf-related science since 2003, as we've had many changes over the past 22 years. Citizen working group committees to obtain continued stakeholder input and review. And we want your help in identifying alternatives that we have not yet captured or concepts that we have overlooked in the existing alternatives to date. So you may provide input in a number of ways. You can, of course, provide input this evening at this meeting. We'll have a second virtual scoping meeting next Tuesday night, again, from 6 to 8 p.m. And there are other opportunities for written comment, either through email or good old-fashioned mail. You can email your comments to FWP Wolf Plan EIS at mt.gov. You can also mail your written comments, attention 2023 Montana Wolf Management Plan EIS, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, Wildlife Division, 1420 East 6th Street. It's an avenue, 6th Avenue in Helena, and that's at our headquarters building there. We will be continuing our scoping for 30 days, so it will close on April 22nd, 2023. And FWP will consider all applicable input provided during virtual scoping meetings and applicable input received or postmarked by Saturday, April 22nd, 23, in defining the scope of this EIS. So this is not, of course, the end of the process. It's really just the beginning. We have not yet drafted a plan. Once we have a plan drafted in an environmental impact statement, we will be sharing those documents with the public, and we will be looking for your review and comment. And so we anticipate additional opportunities for comment sometime late summer, early fall. So let's go ahead and open the evening for comment now. There are a number of people wanting to comment, so please try to limit your remarks to the alternatives that should be considered or aspects of the alternatives that we have presented to be considered in the plan. And please try to keep your comments to about 2 minutes or so. We only have 2 hours for the session, and we have a lot of folks joining us that would like to comment this evening. If you don't get a chance to speak this evening, please try to attend the next session next week, Tuesday, again, 6 to 8 p.m. And feel free to send us those comments in email or in the mail. So with that, Brian, would you like to give us our first commenter?
Yeah, so very good. Anybody that has a comment would like to share an idea on the alternatives as Molly mentioned, please raise your hand. We'll call on you in the order in which that comes up. If you happen to be on a phone trying to reach us, the *9 is what you would use to raise your hand. And like Molly mentioned, we'll try to be as lenient as we can, but we've got 2 hours for this, and so try to be as succinct as you can, limiting it to about 2 minutes. Lizzie Pennock has raised her hand. I'm going to open it up for her to speak.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you all for this opportunity for the public to get involved. I just have like a general comment and maybe question. So I appreciate the emphasis in the beginning of this meeting on potential additional alternatives. And I've been looking through some of the MEPA regulations that govern this process, and it doesn't seem like the alternatives presented in the scoping notice really satisfy the requirements of MEPA to have like a meaningful no action alternative. It seems like because the governor ordered a new plan, basically, there has to be a plan, right? So the no action alternative maybe doesn't seem like reasonable, but we do have to have a baseline. And then it seems to me like also just having the second alternative be like plan when, whatever plan we provide in the next phase. I would really like to see something like there was in the 2003 process where the alternatives weren't plan or no plan, but 5 different kinds of plans. I think that would satisfy probably MEPA more so than the plan or no plan, which is, I'm specifically concerned about that because that's what just happened with the grizzly bear management plan. And I would hate to see our opportunity to really engage in a lot of different ideas and a lot of different applications of science to get at a lot of the broad goals and different values that the public has in Montana. So yeah, at this stage, I plan to follow up with like a written comment of what we would kind of like to see. Should have said this at the beginning. I'm representing Wild Earth Guardians here with my comment tonight, and we would really like to see a conservation alternative where, we're managing with a thriving wolf population. So yeah, just to kind of wrap it up, I think to see alternatives with, here's what 5 different plans could look like, and here's how we could achieve our purpose and need in a lot of different ways would really capture the broad values shared by Montanans. So I will yield after that. Thank you all for being here and for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next, we have Nathan Varley with the Bear Creek Council.
Hello?
Hello, Nathan, you go ahead.
Yeah, I represent Bear Creek Council. We are a small nonprofit grassroots volunteer organization in Park County, Montana. We've been advocating for our industries in the area, which are mostly ecotourism, upon which we rely on live wolves. So I'm hoping within the scoping and the alternative formulation of a plan, we see this stakeholder group represented, some of the economic numbers that we've produced be incorporated into the plan so that basically our livelihoods are being considered alongside of other stakeholders in the state. And it could be great to do a study or review the studies we have on tolerance for wolves on the Montana landscape, because a lot of things have changed in 20 years. And I think I get the impression there's quite a bit of tolerance, but some of the policies currently reflect this notion that there is very little tolerance for wolves. So those are things I think that need to be hit in this process. And I appreciate your attention to this and the chance to make a comment.
Thank you. I see we still have a number of people that are on the call. I don't see any additional raised hands at this time.
I cannot.
Here we go. Mary Lou Blakesley.
There's that. There we go. How's that? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Again, as everyone else has said, thank you very much for this opportunity. I also work in tourism, so I'm going to echo the last two comments, and that is I would like to see tourism and the ability to go and observe wolves to be considered in Montana outside of Yellowstone National Park. And because tourism brings in quite a bit of money and also is another engagement of Montanans, not just people from outside of Montana, I would like to see an alternative that had places set aside in Montana where people could go to observe wolves, like you can go and see the geese in wildfowl parks, and you can go and see other animals in other parts of Montana where there have been lands set aside or waterways set aside for them. So I would like there to be an alternative that takes into consideration the business of tourism and how much money comes in from people who want to see wolves, and where else in Montana that could be a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Dagmar Riddle, you are up and
Yes, here I am. Yes,
Okay.
my name is Dagmar Riddle, and I live in Whitehall. And I represent membership of a lot of pro-wildlife and pro-wolf groups here in Montana and in the Rocky Mountains. My request to be put in the alternatives would be, first and foremost, is to have non-lethal management as a primary and preferred management and tools with wolf policies. And also we need habitat restoration. We need an actual wolf count, which hasn't been done in years. And I really believe that the actual wolf population is way, way, way low, below 500 wolves. The increased hunting policies that have been in effect and the way they are managed and hunted is just horrific. We have no right to exterminate these animals that were reintroduced, that this is their natural habitat where they were for thousands of years, and they coexisted peacefully with other wildlife. There has been no evidence of any attacks by wolves or any deaths here in the Rocky Mountain states. I believe there were two attacks, but they were defensive attacks to wildlife biologists who had leg hold trap the wolves. And I would really insist that baiting and calling and snaring be eliminated. These are cruel and not fair hunt tools. We need to have Montana manage wolves for the public trust, which is for all citizens of the United States. Montana does not own the wolves. We do not own the wolves. They belong to the country as precious resources. And that's what we need to take into consideration with wolf management. And I'd really like to see having that as one of the alternatives. All the things I've said, and I will be probably speaking again and doing a long written comment to get more coexistence with wolves and non-lethal tools and the facts. Now, I have a problem, and that's everybody complains that doesn't like wolves, that hates wolves, that they're eating all the elk. But however, Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks is having problems with too many elk. But heaven forbid if a wolf eats one. What is that?
Dagmar, you've had your 2 minutes.
Okay.
Encourage you to please write as much down as you can and feel free to share it with us.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much for having this.
Wolves of the Rockies. You are up. Let me unmute you. Go ahead.
Okay, we all set?
Yep.
Okay, great. Brian, Molly, thanks for the opportunity to speak. This is Mark Cook. Here's what I would like to see, and our organization's been contemplating this for some time now. We, in the past, even with the original wolf plan, it was done with interested stakeholders who all live in Montana. So what we would like to see is another wolf advisory group. I mean, you do it for elk, you do it for trapping, you do it for grizzly bears. So at some point there needs to be a group of equal participating stakeholders. What I mean by that is if you have 2 trappers there, you need to have 2 non-consumptive people there, two livestock producers, 2 hunters. So there has to be fair and equal representation. Also, we'd like to see an independent facilitator that could, move this advisory group along. And if funding was a problem, we'd gladly step in and help with that. And lastly, the outcome of this hearing or this advisory group should be taken seriously by the department. If it's worked in the past, I will say the Trapping Advisory Committee wasn't all that fair, but I think it needs to be done fairly and with transparency. And if we can get that done, we could get behind it and support this. But I just want to reiterate that we have funding if you guys need funding, but there needs to be a group of interested stakeholders fairly represented by all stakeholders that call Montana home. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Kim Bean, you may unmute yourself and speak.
Well, thanks, Brian and Molly. I appreciate you guys for doing this. My name's Kim Bean. I'm also with Wolves of the Rockies. So, thanks, Mark, for taking my entire spiel. I think he stole my notes earlier today. But I completely agree with what Mark said, everything he said. Just a few other things real quick. We need to really do, and Dagmar Riddle, thank you. There's a lot of things Dagmar said that I think are really, that need to be thought about and pushed forward. We got a lot of habitat restoration that needs to happen in regions 1 and 2. Wolves are being blamed for a lot of things that are happening up there, but we need to look at restoration versus killing wolves. Utilizing non-lethal measures. We need to look at that more so than just going for the kill, always going for the kill. We've seen that non-lethal works better than killing wolves does for our landowners. We need to have more education out there. That needs to be a priority, I do believe. There's ways to make money that we can put out there for the state to help with non-lethal measures. Colorado just put one through, actually, that put that's going to be putting a license plate out there. It's $100. So, keep it wild, something like that. Can't remember what it is, but a license plate out there that allows for every dollar that they make off of that, it goes for non-lethal means to help landowners, right? I think that's a really, really important tool. So we can't we can't say, there's a problem with finance. We can find a way to do that and make that money. We want to be a part of that for sure. So much for bringing this about today and on the 11th. I think we can, as Mark said, we can get behind a lot of things, but we do need that stakeholder group. I think it's an essential part of making this go forward and doing it correctly. So have a great night, Brian, Molly. Thanks again. You guys take care. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Kim. Kara McGarry, your hand is up. We'll unmute you and you may speak.
Okay, there we go. That's how.
Okay.
Tried all day and it didn't work. So sorry, folks. My name is Kara McGarry. I am representing Wild Livelihoods Business Coalition. We're a group of businesses based in Southern Park County. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment, and thanks for making the time to go through this public engagement process. I will be as brief as I can, and I will definitely send in written comments, but I wanted to kind of reiterate that we as a group of businesses would really appreciate it if the economic impact or importance of wolves in the tourism economy and how wolf management in the state of Montana impacts tourism, how the relationship exists, if that analysis was put into the management plan. And we have some documents that I will send you that involve economic studies and kind of tease some of those variables apart that I hope will be helpful for the process. Also want to encourage public engagement, both in this process that we're doing right now. And if it's within the scope of the plan, it would be really useful to have some kind of understanding of a process for engagement with the department, how stakeholders, a framework for stakeholder engagement as decisions are made about wolf management, just to help us engage effectively and efficiently and try not to waste too much of you guys' time. I will echo Nathan's comments about looking at change of tolerance in wolves over time. I know the department's done some really good studies on that. And lastly, I'm really grateful that the updated management plan is happening so that we can get a better understanding of how population modeling is working. What I would request is a review and assessment of the quality of the data that's being put into the IPOM model, how that's being collected, and just getting clear about that, where it's coming from, and how do we know that it is of quality? It's based on hunter observations, I acknowledge, and hopefully we don't have people sort of just making stuff up. There's other aspects of the model that I have questions about, but I'll write all that down. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Michael Storger. You unmute yourself. We'll have an opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you, Brian and Molly, for the opportunity. I came late to this, so I'm going to apologize in advance if I repeat some points that some other folks have already made. But what I would like to see is I would like a search for a more accurate survey method rather than relying on IPOM. I don't see why we can't do on-the-ground counts. Wolves are a large mammal. It's not like counting squirrels. So I'd like an exploration of possible alternate survey methods. Second, I'd like to adjust the goal of the wolf plan to account for species survival rather than managing for bare minimum numbers. Third, I'd like management objectives that allow for healthy migration corridors with the goal of creating genetically viable packs across widespread subpopulations, so we can avoid island biogeography populations. Fourth, I'd like to create a provision that allows for a buffer zone to allow Yellowstone Park wolves to migrate outside of park boundaries. And finally, I would like to remove regulations that allow the snaring of wolves. Thanks so much for the opportunity to comment. Appreciate you doing this.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. Heath, Abusta, may have messed up your name. Apologize for that. If you unmute yourself, you may speak.
Yeah, thank you, Brian and Molly. And you did pretty well with my name, Brian. The legislature doesn't do quite as well. But first off, I just wanted to say I personally have a great deal of faith and confidence in the department to do an excellent job with this plan. I'm not buttering you guys up, but I've been at this for quite a while. And I think you do extremely well, given the tough task you have to balance everything. So next, I'll just say, I think the 30-day EIS scoping period is very adequate. I know it's in compliance with a lot of regulation, and I wouldn't recommend any urge to extend that. I'd also recommend that upon receipt of all of the input and comments that you do proceed with adoption and implementation of the new plan. We've got to get going on this. The thing's over, 22 years old. And we already know what some of those pitfalls have been because it's been a little bit of a delay, not attributed to either one of you two, I might add. But anyway, I think it's important to create some adaptations and some more flexibility and be responsive to the current and future circumstances. Adding some of these new techniques for monitoring, a lot of people don't like them. Science-based tells us otherwise. And also, it's important to retain existing actions and protocols that we know work. We've been at this for a number of years. Let's not change everything just because we're changing some things on this new plan. That makes sense to me. So let's go forward with alternative 2 and continue with this adaptive management approach and population objectives, not setting caps or minimums as some people may think you do. You don't do that. The objectives and the management actions that go with them are successfully maintaining a very viable, currently thriving wolf population. And speaking of objectives, the department should articulate in the new plan that you got to keep adequate pressure on wolf populations in order to meet those objectives. That's a thing that I think has been worked on very well in the past, despite some objections. I'm going to provide more comments in written form at a different time as we go forward. I might have mentioned or failed to mention I'm a director with Montana Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife, and we'll provide a number of finite and detailed comments with more precise recommendations. But as a final comment tonight, I recommend specifically if you go forward with these adaptive and objective management objectives, that in bullet number 4 in proposed action management objective, due to the efficacy of trapping on fast-growing wolf populations, you continue to insert that in any new plan along with the hunting. And finally, be very careful how you may assign.
Keith, I'm gonna have to ask you to put the rest of that in writing for us, please, and get that into us. I apologize.
Will do.
Thank you very much. Nonia, you are next up. If you unmute yourself, you should be able to speak.
Hi, thank you very much, Brian and Molly. My name is Nani Gerber. I'd like to say I echo Wolves of the Rockies' request for a wolf advisory group that represents all stakeholders. I ask that you take into account the scientific evidence regarding wolves and get an actual current wolf count. The current wolf hunt is inhumane, and it leads not just to the slaughter of wolves, but also wolf-like dogs as collateral damage. My rescue dog, Indiana, was caught in the crosshairs of the wolf hunt, and I ask that you focus instead on non-lethal methods, not these cruel wolf hunts going forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Nani. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Please raise your hand and I'll call on you. Larry Roltree, if you unmute yourself, there you go.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate your time and whatnot. I wasn't quite prepared to speak, but since you ran out of people, I thought I'd go ahead and jump on. I think better counts would be an awesome idea. Unfortunately, I've been out of town and I realized that the elk and the deer have moved down into the farmers' fields where they're easier to count, but the elk have moved, or the wolves have staying up in the trees where they're pretty tough to get a good count on. So I think the IPROM gave us a lot better idea of what there is, but I suspect, and a lot of other people, that our actual number is probably closer to twice that or more. So that's something that could, you know, if we could come up with a better way of counting, I'd love to see it, but I don't see it happening. I have seen the ungulate population drop since the wolf's introduction. There's been a couple comments that there's an overpopulation of elk around the country, and in places there may be, but those places don't have wolves, and that's our problem. We need to try and manage the wolf population down to the level that was set in the beginning, that 350 wolves. I had to chuckle when I read that they think in order to have 15 breeding pair that they needed 350 wolves. I guarantee you, if you put 350 dogs together, they'll find out a way to have more than 15 breeding pairs out of that. So I just, I think we've got an overpopulation of wolves. We need to manage them to get them down to a level that they quit impacting our deer and our elk. I'm up in Region 1. We've got half of the wolves in Montana, so that's a problem. Region 2's got an overabundance of them. If you get into Region 3 and on down, then there's not so many of them and whatnot. But unfortunately, we just got too darn many of them when we started before we were allowed to start managing them. So I'll quit then, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Larry. Helena. If you unmute yourself, you will be able to speak. Very good.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, Brian and Molly. Thank you for your work, first of all, and the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Helena. I'm a landowner living in Gardner, Montana. So I personally have a wildlife biology background, and I studied wolves in Alaska. And I think I'd mentioned this to you, Brian, on a phone call last week. But I do think it's critical to have a wolf advisory committee. There's an elk one, there's a mountain lion one, and I think there might be more, but to feed into decisions on this management plan. And I think it's really important to include stakeholders such as myself that enjoy seeing wolves on the landscape alive. We're never represented. And I'd love to be on such a committee. I do think also with the new plan that habitat and connectivity has to be included. There is a serious problem with IPOM as implemented by Montana. There are many other options for counting the wolves. And so I think this seriously has to be revised. I also think I'd love to see in the plan to have it not possible for Yellowstone wolves to be baited out of the park and killed. And I think also, finally, it's really important to have only fair chase and ethical hunting regulations. And that's it. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Casey York. If you unmute yourself, there you go.
Here I am. Hi, Brian. Hi, Molly. It's Casey York out of the Bitterroot with Trap Free Montana. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Lots of great comments. Thank you. I want to reiterate, I think it's really important to have the Wolf Advisory group, but I would advocate taking it a step further. I think it's got to be equitable with equal representation. And the majority of Montanans do not trap, they do not hunt wolves. So I think it should be, I think it should represent that, not, two trappers, two non-consumptives, two hunters. I also think among those people with ranchers and whatnot, we should have Native Americans. We should also have business owners who are directly impacted, that reap a lot of the rewards and the money that comes to the state through wolf watching and tourism. I also feel that we really need to back off with all this liberalized wolf trapping and snaring. It's trapping is just cruel and it's very indiscriminate. And with the traps that are set for wolves, these are very damaging. They're very damaging, and the snaring is basically lethal. But there's a big difference between a trap that's set for a coyote, not that we support that, but the amount of damage that's being done. I think needs to be addressed in the wolf management plan. It needs to be looked at because it's a lot more than trapping wolves. And then lastly, one thing that I think set up so many problems in this state is the lack of education from the department. You may be caught between a rock and a hard place, but if you don't advocate for wildlife, if you don't advocate for wolves, who will? The public looks to you. They look to you for your knowledge, your training, and too often you've been quiet on it. I mean, hearing even today about people still don't believe we're overpopulated with elk. Wolves keep the elk strong and healthy. And that has to be a huge part of this new plan in the department stepping it up and communicating the vital role wolves play. Otherwise, it's going to be very disingenuous and favor the ongoing lethal removal of wolves and down to the very minimum token number, which is not ethical or ecologically based. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Others who would like to make a comment and share ideas. We're looking specifically again for ideas that are going to help us identify kind of the scope, the alternatives that we may have missed or aspects of it that we have haven't caught so far. Lizzie, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Just since we seem to have time, I think something that's important, and again, I'm here representing Wild Earth Guardians. Some of the legislation that's currently in effect takes a little bit of discretion away from FWP and the Fish and Wildlife Commission. For example, snaring is currently required by the law. But since the Wolf Management Plan is a document that could last, around 5 years before it's revisited. In that time frame, those laws could be off the books in the next session. So I think an additional alternative or something else to consider would be, what does wolf management look like in the state without some of those laws on the books? Because I think if we don't look at that, then we're going to be limiting ourselves to things that may not be relevant in potentially the short term. So I would really like to see how FWP thinks they could manage, for example, if there wasn't a law on the books saying we need to reduce the wolf population or that snaring is required. And I think that could go in a conservation alternative or just in within any other alternative. But I think that's an important angle. Thank you for letting me speak again as well.
You're welcome. Thank you. Keith, I'll come back to you as well.
Thanks, Brian. I was just going to add the final sentence of my earlier comments, and that is, I think the department needs to be very careful on how and if you assign any management strategy based on businesses that depend and decided to depend on wildlife to make their business plan work. I know that's going to come from two different directions with outfitting, hunting, trapping, watching, etc. But when you go into a business depending on a natural resource, it's not going to be a finite resource. Under management guidelines and strategies, you're obligated to do it, not necessarily for businesses. So please be careful how that proceeds. Thank you and Godspeed.
Thanks so much, Keith. Others that would like to share information with us, is there anyone that I've had to restrict some time? We've got some time here, and if okay, Shia Mills, I think I'm going to go to you. Apologize if I've actually, Mark, I think I've unmuted you, and if you want to go ahead, and then we'll move to Ashia.
Sure. Can you hear me, Brian?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Thank you. One thing I left out, if you're going to have if you're going to consider to do a wolf advisory group, I think the format of it should be, the format of the group is very important, in a sense that I personally serve on the Ravalli County Collaborative, and I would like to see a collaborative effort other than an advisory group effort. And the difference is that in a collaborative, you have to have total agreement with all the parties that are on the collaborative. Or an advisory group, you can have a vote and 51% wins. So I would encourage you to have a collaborative style working group. Thanks for taking my comment.
Thank you. Ashia, I'm going to try and unmute you again. Very good. Go ahead.
Thanks, and you did great with my name. I appreciate it. Thank you. My name is Ashia Mills. I live in Gardner and part-time in Livingston, and I've been a guide.
Ashia, I'm having difficulty hearing you. I don't know if anybody else is.
Let's see. Is that any better?
I'm still having difficulty.
Okay, one more time. Am I on?
Okay, I can barely hear you.
Okay, give me just 1 second here. Okay, how about now? Any better?
It's a little better.
Okay, I'm working with a
There,
couple different.
that works. That works.
Awesome. Apologies, I'm working on a couple different systems. I'll try to keep it short. Thank you. This is Ashia Mills. Great job with my name. I'm live in Gardner and spend time in Livingston as well. I've been a guide in the park for in Yellowstone for going on 26, 7 years, something like that. And so I've seen a lot of changes, and I really appreciate the chance to comment. Mostly reiteration of what other folks have said. I'd love to see a Wolf Advisory Committee and some better counting methods. I think we all recognize that IPOM has a lot of shortcomings, and I think that it's would not be that difficult to put some effort into accurate counts, be they higher or lower. We've heard from both sides on opinions on what that is. Let's just get an accurate count so we have better data. I love the idea of education, better education, and I think you have a lot of groups that would help support that financially as well. I am very interested in any kind of equal comprehension from stakeholders. And of course, I am a business owner. I do have a small educational guiding company, but I also really like living with large predators and raising my family here and living in the wild. So it's not just an economic stake for me. I do think that there's been a lot of effort recently, recently over the last, say 20 years since the 03 plan, that takes into account very good data and accurate counts around livestock, but that has not been the case for economics, particularly related to tourism, which is an incredibly important component to Montana's economics, as well as Park County, where I live. And so a lot has changed since the beginning of the management plan that was finalized in 03. And we'd really like to see a description of what's changed in wolf management and what the efficacy of those management changes have been empirically. We'd like to get a better understanding of that. We talk a lot about adaptive management with wolves and other species, but I'd like to know what the objectives that the management is being adapted to, and how those objectives are representing the various stakeholders, not just some. I think we really need to have a broader invitation to the table, and we do intend to show up. I am a member of many different organizations, but one of them is Wild Livelihoods down here in South Park County, and I think we have a really good understanding of both the ecological impacts of having wolves on the landscape, as well as the economic impacts. And so I am trusting that you will count us in as stakeholders, and I really appreciate all of your time. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you for your comments and your time. We'll go to Dagmar. Give you a little bit more time to speak.
Yes, hi, thank you. Again, I'm Dagmar Riddle from Whitehall, and I have a degree in environmental management and restoration technology and a certificate in fish and wildlife law enforcement. So I've been interested in wolves and wolf management and science for many, many years. And I really believe that there is a lack of education on the real wolf, and we really need to educate them. I see so much education going on at Fish, Wildlife, and Parks with hunting and trapping and all that kind of stuff. And I don't see any education on the benefits of having wolves on the landscape. They are very good for keeping disease down in the ungulate population. And I'm also pretty concerned about what's going on with the Yellowstone park wolves. I'm really concerned about that, how they call them out right on the borders of the park and bait them and do all kinds of things so that they can kill them. And there's just, not many wolves in the park, and they are such a draw from people all around the whole world. And so they do benefit the economics of Montana. And we have so much open land. Why are we killing so many wolves and want a small number of wolves? I would like to see some research done on what the state can hold in the population and how we can manage them more ethically. And I do have a problem with all these unethical hunting policies on federal land, because wolves and wildlife belong to the country, to the whole country, not to Montana. And when they're on federal lands, Montana is making management policies, and I think there needs to be more cooperation with the BLM and the Forest Service and other federal lands to manage them more ethically and in lower kill numbers. So that's some of the things that I'm thinking about. I would really like to have not IPOM be a tool for wolf numbers. And I'd also like to see the weekly wolf reports come back in like a monthly or bi-monthly basis, because it really gave us a lot of information on what's happening to wolves, what's happening to livestock from wolves. And I guess that's it for the moment. Thank you for letting me speak again.
Thank you, Dagmar. Just like to remind everybody, kind of try to keep your comments as focused on the plan as you can. I understand there's a lot surrounding wolves that kind of gets everybody interested, but Michael, we'll come back to you here, give you a chance to speak.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I just want to make one point. Brian, I don't know what your background is, but I'm going to assume you've got a background in wildlife biology. And, I've been listening tonight to everyone make their comments, and most have been objective and accurate, but I'm having a hard time with a couple of commenters that are just, they're putting out misinformation, and I'm tired of nobody calling it out as factually inaccurate. And I'm not going to name names, but I'm tired of hearing people talk about wolves destroying elk populations. That's simply not true. You work at FWP, so I'm going to assume that you know that of the 7 regions across the state, 5 regions exceed state elk objectives and 2 meet state elk objectives. So I'm tired of hearing people talk about wolves decimating elk. It's simply not true. And I would hope that we can start having an honest, accurate conversation about this. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Michael. We're certainly not trying to be judgmental of anybody's comments. We actually are trying to be as open to any comments that people have. At this point, we're just trying to scope the various alternatives that we might consider, and not, like I say, not trying to be judgmental on anybody's input. So if anybody else has anything to share. I'm not seeing any further raised hands, Molly. I don't know, is there anything further you would like to share at this point in time, and before we conclude?
Thanks, Brian. I don't really have anything to share at this point. Eric, I know you're still on the call. Do you have anything that you'd like to share regarding the process we'll be working through with the EIS and the wolf plan development?
Perhaps not, but we certainly do have another meeting. I'd like to remind everybody about the meeting next week. We've also got the opportunity to continue. I see Eric has may have step back here and unmuted there.
Oh, some audio difficulties. Technology is not always our friend.
Having
Okay,
some
there I go.
challenges.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear what I'm? Yes. Okay. Yeah. No, I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Eric Merchant. I am the MIPA coordinator for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, meaning that procedurally I will manage development of the environmental impact statement. And I guess the only thing that I would say, and thank you all for the great comments, really important information and insight. As Brian has alluded to, as we've alluded to, right now there are two alternatives that are being looked at. One is the status quo, where management would occur, or in some cases potentially move backward toward strategies that were employed in the 2003 plan. Whereas the new plan, and we talk about insights around, alternatives that we should be considering, concepts, ideas that surround wolf management and how that would be outlined in the plan. We're certainly moving forward with a strategy here, and we want to hear from you. A plan will be required. Okay, we understand that management of wolves is a complex undertaking, and there are many facets to that. We want to hear from you what that plan will consider, and specifically within an EIS, the environmental impact structure, evaluate those alternatives, those issues that should be considered and looked at in the plan, or looked at for development of the plan or furthering of those strategies that have worked. So I just want to make it clear to folks that are concerned about, the idea that, it's one plan versus another plan. What we're trying to understand is what is important to you as it relates to the development of a new plan. Going back to using the no action alternative or selecting the no action alternative would be a step back in time. Using data that isn't as good, non-contemporary data and information and tools and strategies. We certainly have the impacts associated with, the legislature creating laws, and then FWP beholden to those, as their responsibility, beholden to those laws of the land, so to speak. But I appreciate the comments stating, we have to be flexible into the future, right? So we need to look at things like how, as things change through time, as laws go away, as wolf population numbers change, we have to be flexible. And we're looking for a plan that has all of that capability to be flexible into the future and to manage for the wolf in ways that consider all potential impacts. So I want it to be clear that we are at the outset of this process. We are at the very, very beginning of it. We are scoping tonight. Alternatives, the no action alternative, I talked about it, the new plan, inclusion of all reasonable alternatives or discussion of reasonable alternatives and analysis of that is required by MIPA. That is what we're seeking. We're trying to understand what the affected public is interested in, what your ideas are, and how those ideas could be portrayed in a new management plan. So we appreciate this time. This is the very beginning of a rigorous and long process that is intended to manage this population of wolves that live within our boundaries. So I just want folks that are interested in that, to understand that we are at that place where we want to hear from you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Lizzie, I see you've got your hand back up again. Let me try that again.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just going off of the, the procedural stuff. I know there were some issues like going back to the grizzly bear management plan. When the draft EIS came out, we had a 30-day comment period, which, a lot of people objected to, and we ended up with a 60-day comment period. So I think, it seems like you guys are taking this really seriously, which I think we can all appreciate. And I would just like to see extra time for people to meaningfully engage and comment and talk to you guys and share information built in from the get-go, and just try to kind of anticipate, I think with the scoping comment is one thing for 30 days, but once we have a draft plan, it is going to be complex, as you all have recognized. And I would just like to see more than the statutory requirements for comment periods. We really need the time to meaningfully engage, and we shouldn't have to fight for it. And I'm hoping that we don't, because it seems like, a lot of us are on the same page with, we all want a good, effective, working document. So I just wanted to kind of get that out there at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Lizzie. We certainly do intend to try to make this as inclusive as we possibly can. And again, reminding everybody to, get on the website. You can find ways to comment if you haven't had a chance to do so tonight, and there will be another one in a week from now. Kim, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Listen, I stepped away for a second, so I hope I'm not reiterating anything anybody else has said. My concerns are this: when I listen to Mike speak, and thank you again for doing so, but, we talk about legislation, we talk about, having to adhere to legislation and the laws that they pass. One of the things that you guys are wanting to look at is transparency in wolf management going forward. We have watched this transparency slowly diminish over the last 2 years. Actually, not slowly, quickly diminish over the last 2 years. So, and then when I see, FWP standing up in legislation, basically wanting to silence even more to the public what's happening on our public lands, I'm having a hard time believing this, right? So this is a little difficult for me when we talk about transparency and having the ability for the public to know what's going on with our wolves. This is difficult. So I would really like to know what your plan is for more transparency, because we do need to know what's happening on our public lands. We can't be held captive. We need to know the majority of the people on public lands are users of public lands. They're not 1% or 0.25%. The majority of us are out there either backpacking, hiking, fishing, enjoying the views, etc., whatever that may be. And we need to know what's happening out there. So you guys have already shut down a lot of the information. So I need to know what's going on there. That's really important. For those of us who love our apex predators, bears, wolves, lions, whatever, this is an issue. They are literally, there's a war against them. And right now you guys are wanting to redo a plan, and you're putting those words of transparency out there to be part of that plan. And I'm just having a hard time buying that because I've watched you shut it down. So I really want to know what your plan is to open up that view again for those of us to know what's happening. And I will continue to reiterate over and over and over that we need to get boots on the ground out there counting these wolves. I've heard it. Everybody's saying it. We need to make sure we know what that count is. We will continue to fight, the IPOM aspect of things. But I'm concerned about transparency. Thanks again. Sorry about that. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kim.
That's okay, Kim. Appreciate your comments. Again, I don't see any more hands up. We had a reminder from Sam that the email address is wolfplaneis@mt.gov, and continue to send your comments there. Molly, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you, guys. Well, we really appreciate everyone coming out this evening. Really great comments tonight. We're definitely going to take everything into consideration, and we will have a second meeting next Tuesday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. So for those of you who joined tonight, if you think of additional comments, feel free to join us again. We'll look forward to hearing from you in the written and email comments as well. And we'll look forward to chatting with you all here in the near future.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.